Here we do go. Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to Money in the Law, my FM 101.3. This is Money in the Law with your host, Jay Marston. He is from the Marston Law Group, and I'm John Drouin. I'm from Main Effort Financial. Tom Herman is from the Holliston Hub, formerly known as HCAT.
Yes.
And we are here, once again, bringing you the discussion, the information, the happiness that all goes around things that have to do with the law.
The blanket of knowledge, I believe, is what it's been referred to.
I love it. And, and the law and money. And we talk about that and then kind of weave anything and everything else in life, at least in our lives.
We've strayed from the path a little bit to open up the discussion to other topics that we feel are somehow related.
But they connect.
Maybe dotted line, but they're on there.
As we always say, right? Everything needs to either directly or indirectly take you to the place where you want to be.
That's right.
That's it. And this is what we are doing right now. We are, whether it be directly or indirectly, we are taking you where you want to go.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so that's why, should you make the unfortunate decision to not listen to this today, it's all we can do, right?
I mean, the loss is yours. We've said that before. The loss is definitely yours.
But you're going to learn.
But you can come away with just a little window of knowledge, and then off you go.
And you know what it is? You're that much closer to where you want to be.
Yeah.
That's it. You're that much closer. Whether it be personal happiness, whether it be financial nirvana, whether it be that said when you look down, when you've checked into the Four Seasons Hotel of eternity, and you look down and you say, look what I've done. And
time well spent.
Right? And everything as you want it is all set up, and you look down and you may be
time well spent.
A ghost of Christmas whatever, kind of not the Jacob Marley with chains around you. No. You're the other guy. You're that ghost of Christmas, the big heavy guy.
You have two options here. You can spend an hour listening to us and you can get wicked smart, or you can spend an hour surfing YouTube shorts and learn how to change the tires on a 2012 Jeep Grand Wrangler.
Which really, you're going to mess that up anyway.
Either way.
And it's not going to, someone else is going to have to fix it.
And you're going to say to yourself, how did this get in my feed? How did this end up in here? Why are these guys not in my feed?
Yeah, think about it, right? Think about how much, and this goes to, especially to this younger generation right now, like, all you millennials
out there.
To the kids out there that spend so much time on your calculators, texting,
head down,
right?
Yep.
What are you doing? You know what you're doing? You're spinning your wheels. You're wasting time.
The world is up here.
Listen, right now you're probably in the car, right? Or you're at home, and you have an option, right? You can either get something done while you're listening to this, or even better, you're home watching this on TV, right? Put your phone down, pay attention, listen, get your notebook out.
I mean, how many times have people said to you, John, eyes up here? It's happened to you time and time again, right? John, eyes up here. You know what I'm talking about? That's what I'm saying.
So for the next 50 some odd minutes, just pay attention.
There you go. Got it. Take notes.
How's things with you? Are you caught up in the holiday season?
No, not at all.
I mean, I know your attitude is.
You know my passion for the holiday season. It knows no bounds.
I do.
But no, we haven't quite dove into it just yet. I like to put it off as long as I can.
That's good. That's good.
I like to get that tree up around the 23rd.
You and nobody
the
else.
24th. Get it down around the 27th if I can. That way I don't even have to bring the boxes back downstairs. Say, my wife, what am I bringing all these Rubbermaid containers back down to the basement for? I'm just taking this down in 72 hours. Can't I just leave them here?
Smart. Leave them right here in the kitchen.
Can't you wrap around them?
Yeah,
Can't you wrap around them? People might need to sit on them when they come over Christmas Eve. When I just leave them out, it's more seating. You don't see it the way I do, but this is, I think, how we should probably handle it.
You can sit on. We got the boxes you can sit on, which are better, right?
They're real Rubbermaids. They're really sturdy.
Just put the lid on them. Make sure you match the right lid.
They might not hold you, but they might hold your husband or your wife. But I mean, you might need to sit in real furniture.
They're not going to hold me.
What am
I going to do with you?
How are things going over at the North Pole over on your?
Well, we're a little behind schedule.
Boy!
Yeah, we were away this weekend. We had to go visit. We had to visit Chloe. So my Chloe, who is this semester is the Shakespeare semester. So I was reintroduced to the one each Mr. Billy Shakespeare, and I got to see. She was in the play A Winter's Tale, which I don't know if you've ever seen that. Of course, I'd never never seen it. And it's funny because when you talk about Shakespeare, you know, you kind of, you know, the immediate thoughts come to mind. Like I kind of remember a couple Shakespeare things. I know, you know, when you say, oh yeah, Taming of the Shrew and Hamlet and you know Romeo and Juliet, you know, you kind of, we've all kind of grown up with
you know
that,
the big
right?
ones. You know the big names.
Yeah,
You know the
yeah,
big names.
and so you think you can kind of talk with it, right? And then when you if unless you're kind of into it, do you ever read it? Do you still read Shakespeare?
Not a lot.
No,
not a lot. I mean,
not at all.
I mean, not a lot. I mean, go back to that YouTube Shorts comment I made earlier. It doesn't show up in my feed, so there's
No.
not a lot going on.
It doesn't,
you know?
right? But so then when you say, okay, well, you however you have to kind of get back to it, you're reading it, you're listening to it, and you're like, first of all, it's brilliant, right? It's brilliant stuff, and second of all,
From
you're
what I
like,
remember,
you're
yes.
like, I don't understand because what are you talking about, right? And so it's good so when you're reading it, you're like, I have no idea what you're talking about, but when you kind of see it, you can sort of make it out. This guy's talking to this guy, right? You know, so we got neck deep right back into it, and it was great. It was great. It was 3.5 hours. One intermission, 3.5 hour play, and I'm like, whoa, like Bill Shakespeare, like he was not messing around.
Bill was not spare with the words.
No,
Bill was
no.
not spare with the words.
And that's the thing. You find out like where the scene, and you kind of know, all right, what's supposed to happen.
Sure.
It's going to take an extra 7 minutes to kind of let's get through. Let's
Tease
talk
this
about
out.
this a little
Yeah.
bit more.
Yep.
And you're like, come on, let's keep it going. But it was great. It was great to see. And then the other part of it is like, and these are students, right? These are acting students. And you're like, how do you remember? I can't even remember what I'm going to say.
Oh, how about remembering your lines in regular? Forget the King's English.
Yeah.
How about remembering your lines in just regular,
Yeah.
everyday? You know. Yep.
So from the, you know, again, and we are connoisseurs of the film and acting industry.
Sure.
I think we are. So all of them, right? All of the big names,
Yeah.
they've all done Shakespeare, right?
Yep.
All the big guys, right? Like you think like Denzel Washington, like, you know, like
And you hear about some of these guys, and still, like in that industry, they'll talk about, you know, Yul Brynner, and then there'll be a discussion about how, like, that was, if you had nobody was ever pick any of those characters, right? Nobody played a better
Julius Caesar.
Nobody played a better King Lear than him,
Yeah.
and you're like, King Lear, and the name rings a bell. Not Norman Lear, the King Lear rings a bell.
Isn't that the guy that founded the thing you put on the back of pickup trucks, right? Like those.
Wasn't he the guy who invented Three's Company? Norman
Yeah.
Lear, right? That guy? He was pretty popular, right? The Love Boat, you know, all in the
Really,
family.
yeah,
all
really
that-
gifted
that him.
producer, yeah.
And then he did some Shakespeare stuff. I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah.
So that's a. No, I haven't dove into that area of literature probably since my Arlington Catholic days.
Yeah, right.
Been a
Since you
while.
had to,
Been a
right?
while,
Since you had to, and then you did it, and you muscled through it, and
Yeah.
you got like back then. Now there's like, you know, there's the interweb, which will explain anything for you.
Oh,
but
sure.
But back then you had like that Shakespeare cheat, like the
Cliff
Cliff
Notes.
Notes,
Look at
right?
the Cliff Notes.
And you're like, okay, what's
you read the night before the
what's
exam.
actually happening in the play Othello?
Know who all the players are. That's right. I mean, I don't go to the theater much, but I do know how to behave at the theater.
You do.
I'm certainly no Bobert. I know what I'm doing there when I get there. Yeah, I know how to handle myself at the theater like an adult. But you know, hey, that's what you're up against.
You know how to clean up.
That's right. I clean up all right.
You know how to
all
clean
right.
up.
That's right. I do want to tux.
So the long story is that we're a little behind because
All right.
I didn't have this weekend,
Okay.
but I did get the wreaths are up. I got the big wreath, so that's it. In our neighborhood, you have there's a little bit of
wreath
there's some
competition.
work. There's some work that's going into it. We have some new neighbors.
Yeah.
I think they're still unpacking, right? Or at least maybe they're taking, because I didn't have anything.
Well, they'll
up until-
unpack the Christmas stuff first.
Exactly.
That's probably what they're going to do. A friend of mine puts a Christmas tree in every room of his house.
a Christmas tree, real Christmas
A
tree.
Christmas tree in every room of his house.
That's what I'm talking.
I mean,
about.
that's pretty
legit.
impressive. I mean, that's like a mic drop right there, like done and
Yeah.
done.
How many Christmas trees do you have? In
We
which
have-
room? Yeah.
We decorate
in
9
the kitchen
every year.
Yeah.
Yep. I want to open up like an umbrella. I want to just like open the whole thing up, put it in the stand,
Like the
plug
Grinch.
it in, and I want to un-umbrella it, and I want to slide it back into the box like a beach chair.
They made a
And
movie
done.
about a guy like you.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. That's right.
I like that idea. the tree in
There you
every
go.
room.
Haley, you're welcome.
You got to
You're
want
welcome.
it.
You're welcome.
Although Lily said to me today, yesterday, Lily's like, she's like, you know what? All the inside Christmas decorations, they're a little tacky.
Whoa.
I mean, I almost didn't speak to her for the
Shots
rest
fired.
of
Get
right?
out. Get out.
I'm like, no.
Get out. I'll
you
see
don't
you
live here.
December
Who are you?
26th.
Who are you?
Yep, that's right. That's right. So what's on your mind? What do you want to talk about today other than Christmas trees? The economy of Christmas.
Do you want to talk about the economy of Christmas?
I mean, did you want to do the whole inflation 12 days of Christmas thing again? We could do, I'm not really prepared for that, but we could wing that.
Well, what I wanted to talk about today is, and I brought it in. So speaking of Christmas,
Yep.
I have, this is what is known as the Christmas book.
It says it right on the
Yeah,
front.
it says right on the
Yep.
front.
Yep.
So, and the Christmas book is a documentation of kind of and we've been doing it for a while, and it all started way back when, where I would forget what I got for presents, and I had like this, I had an experience where I got somebody the same gift as I got them last year. I'm like, I got to write this down because I don't remember. And again, you know what Christmas is
Look,
like.
a bread maker. Oh, I'll put it with my other one.
You the one you got me last. So you know what Christmas is like. You know how it's like kind of when it starts to ramp up. You know, even though you're not a Christmas guy, when the train comes by, when the Polar Express, you get on.
Oh, of course, yes. Oh, yeah.
In fact,
I get on.
In fact, you get
under
on
duress because my wife says, "Get on."
No, but
I'm getting on.
But you get on, and one of the stops, of course, is our house, which, as you
Yep.
know, there's another. You know, the comeback Christmas, the comeback of the year Christmas party's happening. You get on, and you've stopped at that place, and I recall. In fact, I have some video of you that you were really enjoying yourself at my Christmas party.
I'm fine.
Because,
that's
and you know what, and we
I
talked.
do love the holiday cheer. I don't love the holiday, but I do love the holiday cheer.
We talked about it and how impressed and happy I was that you were as happy as you were
Yeah,
at that Christmas.
Why wouldn't I be?
So many years ago, I was like, look, I gotta do something about this. And so I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna write down, I'm just gonna have a book, right? And this is back in the day, kind of even before we're putting stuff on your phone and stuff. So I had a book, right? And I was like, okay, so I wrote down kind of what all the presents I got everybody. Then I started to add to it, say, you know what, maybe I should, who am I sending Christmas cards? If I got that in there, just have some reference, right? So it's kind of evolved, volcanoed into now everything that we do, we record about Christmas in the Christmas
book.
So this is volume, I don't know what volume.
I thought it was like an old cookbook. It has old cookbook vibes.
Oh, there's that in there.
Sure.
So then like when we talk about the party, okay, hey, what do we have last year at the party? What do we want to change?
You get a great figgy pudding recipe in there that everybody can't wait to get their mitts on.
And it's fun and it's interesting. Is anybody ever going to read it? Probably not, right?
No.
So, but at least I have the comfort
it makes you happy. It's all that matters.
Well, it makes me feel like, okay, hey, I know what I got you last year for Christmas. I can refer to the book.
Excellent.
And then when someone says, oh, you didn't get me that, I'm like,
hold on.
It says right here.
I brought the receipts.
In the book, right?
Yeah.
So I wanted to kind of caveat this into the idea of documenting things and the idea of how oftentimes we forget, why do I, you, as in your profession, is the documentation of my will, my estate plan. Like that's something that's really important. And, it's great if you say, hey, I'm going to go to Marsden Law, I'm going to get my estate plan done. Don't worry, it's going to be documented.
Sure.
And it's going to be documented the right way because it has to be a valid legal document. But just the idea of kind of recording that and making sure that it's all there and then understanding it and being able to go back to it and refer to it, because what's going to happen is you're going to forget, right? You're going to forget like why I did this, what were the circumstances under which I made these decisions. And your estate plan, it's kind of like that's an easy kind of no-brainer. That's done for you, as you do it. Bring that over to your financial plan. Sometimes it's not as clean. It's not as clear cut. Like, hey, there's not necessarily a financial estate plan that you have, because your financial plan is kind of one of these evolving things that kind of changes much more often than maybe your estate plan does.
Well, it's funny. We when we draft trust documents for clients, your trust document or your wills or things like that. And so clients will come to us and they'll say, okay, and they'll want to spend a substantial amount of time talking about whatever their final wishes are, right? We get this all the time. And so they want to make sure that those go in the will, right? Jay, we got to write all this down. Blue suit, red tie, wingtip shoes, blah, 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 whatever the deal is for their whole arrangement. And then we'll say to clients, well, hang on, we don't put that in your will. We want to write that down. So this is the theme, right? We want to write that down. It just doesn't get written down here.
Yeah.
And the reason is because this document, this will document, this trust document, this may not see the light of day. This might not get opened for a week, 10 days after you're gone, right? So the last thing we want to do is put those very specific, timely instructions in a document that's not going to get opened up for 10 days because there might be an oops moment where somebody's like, oh my gosh, we have to go get the shovels. There was a whole different plan here than what we had done, right? So we got to kind of figure this out, right?
So because we have a couple of them. We have like 3 shovels.
But that's what people will talk about. But the other thing is, and I don't know if this is just me, I don't know if this is just me getting old. I have no reason to think that there's any reason for this to be necessary right this second, but I do right now, like in the back of my mind, I really have been saying to myself, I need to write this stuff all down, not for me, but for my wife.
Yeah.
Right? Something happens to me. My wife has no idea where business stuff is, where personal stuff is. She doesn't know any of the things. So cobbler's kid, right? I'm as guilty of it as our clients. We spend so much time preaching that to the clients, and one of my 2024 kind of end of the year goals was to start 2025 with not so much a Christmas book, but like a stuff book. Like, here's where the stuff is.
Yeah.
Here's where the bank accounts are. Here's the bank account numbers. Here's the life insurance policies. Here's where the investment accounts are. I mean, she knows, she sees the statements. She yells at me to file them every single month when they come in, but that's a different animal, right? And having a checklist that you leave for somebody so that you can remember this is all of our stuff helps that,
think about it, right? Think about it. If something happens to me, right?
Sure.
Something happens to me, my wife, she's going to call you. Yep. She's going to say, here's this is, and you're going to, even if you don't know passwords or anything like that, you're going to have a list of things. You can, like, you as somebody who's, who understands that, says, you look at like, all right, here are the things that we need to kind of look for. So this looks like we have an insurance policy here. This looks like you have, a couple of, brokerage accounts or this is where, like, your money, but then there's the other things, right? Then there's, like, the things like your
business account.
Yeah, how does your business
no
work?
idea where your business account lives.
Yeah.
No idea.
And what how does that entail? Like, how does your business run? Like, and we talked about this too.
Who's your insurance broker? Who insures the building? Who insures your because your life is separate, right? So it's not like someone's just going to call your HR department and say, "Hey, I'm so sorry for your loss." I mean, you've got a whole parallel professional life that lives with your personal life. That for a whole bunch of reasons, not right, not wrong, your significant other just might not be hip to. She just figures, well, that's his thing. He runs that.
Yeah, because both of our significant others, they both work.
Yeah.
And they go, I don't want to deal with I don't want to worry about, like, paying your quarterly taxes on your your building. I don't want to, like, worry about your, like you said, like your snowplow guy or anything. That's you.
That's right. And you might have your own separate accounting system, and you've got accounts that pay for, landscaping and landscaping at the house. No. There's a whole nother landscaping thing. Oh, I didn't realize that. Oh, there's a snowplow. No, there's separate. All this stuff is separate.
Speaking of landscaping and snowplowing, I have to do a quick shout out to our mutual friend, JR.
The great Jimmy Reed?
The great James Reed.
Yes.
So,
yes.
And Jimmy Reed, and I will say this now in anticipation that in the new year, I said I was going to talk to you about this, so I'll do it on the air. Jimmy Reed said, he sends me a text and he says, one of the things that I've always wanted to do was to be on the radio.
Oh, done and done.
And I said,
done.
Say no more. Jay and I will get you on.
We'll make that happen.
We'll do the Jimmy Reed show. And Jimmy can hold his own too, right?
Believe me, he can talk a dog off a meat wagon. No worries there.
So, so that's it. That'll be like a little, like, after Christmas present with Jimmy Reed.
Small business spotlight.
Small business spot and small business is on the planning board now. So Jimmy Reed is wired into Holliston.
He'll fill some airtime.
He'll be a good guest. All right. So let's take a quick break.
Sure.
All right. Let's go take a quick break. And we'll come back and we'll talk about this because the kind of our situation might be a little bit more extreme than somebody else because we're if you run your own business, right?
Sure.
So this is kind of like this idea of having like at least a checklist or a list of things that is probably smart information. You don't have to go into like necessarily all the details.
Painstaking detail, but
at least people will know where to start looking. All
Okay,
right, so we'll
sounds
talk
good.
about that. Take a quick break. Don't go away. Money in the Law, My FM 101.3. We're in the Christmas holiday season.
Yeah,
We're we are. He is as well. Tommy is. Tommy
definitely
totally
is.
is.
Tommy definitely
All right,
is.
we'll see everybody in 5 minutes or 2 minutes. We'll be right back.
Something like that. And we're back, My FM 101.3. Jay Marsden with the Marsden Law Group. John Drohan, Main Effort Financial. Tom's on the bag. And we are talking about kind of it's almost like it's not a naughty list. It's not a nice list. It's just a list.
Just
we're
a
talking
list.
Christmas time. We're talking about taking a little bit of initiative to kind of be organized, kind of knowing where all your stuff is. And not just, we were kind of joking about it as, you want to let everybody know where your stuff is so that if your spouse has to kind of come in and get a handle on anything. But it's also nice to kind of take stock. It's also nice to kind of do an overall 30,000-foot assessment to say, what are we working on here, right? Because, you need to, it's not always about work, right? At some point you got to celebrate some successes. And this exercise could be that kind of, success celebration. On our trust documents, at the end of the trust document, there's a schedule. It says Schedule A, $10. And years ago, what that used to mean is when somebody would set up a trust at the doc signing, where they would sign all the documents and make the thing real, somebody, never lawyers, because they're as cheap as the day is long, but somebody in the meeting would reach into their pocket and pull out a dollar bill. And they would staple the dollar bill to the back of the trust document. And that was an affirmative step or an affirmative act that you basically said, the trust is live because I funded it. I funded it with $1. Okay,
that's not unlike the the Breaking Bad when
Yes.
if I'm blindfolded and
about to get shot in the
handcuffed
head
and
in
I
the
say
desert?
put $1 in
not in
my
my pocket. So, but the idea is it's this whole concept of you funded your trust, right? It wasn't not funded. You funded it with $1. It's up and running. But of course, with the advent of word processing software, so what would happen is you have all these trust documents hanging around in all these lawyers' offices with all these dollar bills stapled to the back of them, right? So you
Well, not
laugh.
for long.
Everybody laughs when I tell this story. And so one day we're at the office. Somebody came in the office with a very old trust document. They pull it out of the envelope, and what's stapled to the back of it? A couple of dollar bills, a couple of trusts there.
Yeah.
And so I gather around the office staff and I'm like, you guys have
here, young grasshoppers.
have been making fun of me for 15 years. You all think I'm insane. I just wanted to let you know this did
Here we go.
happen. But my point is,
This trust is funded.
but my point is, people will come to us and they'll say, so I'm going to list everything else here on the Schedule A and that gets it in the trust. And the answer is no. You have to go to Fidelity. You have to change your registration on your deeds. You got to change your registration on your bank accounts to put things in the name of your trust. So this exercise that we're talking about is a great opportunity to get kind of a handle on what do I own and how do I own it.
Yeah, that's important, right? And you kind of went through that relatively quickly, but I'm just going to say it for the for the slow guys.
Yeah, slow it down. Yeah.
So again, if something is supposed to be in your trust or in your mind, you thought it was going to be in your trust or you wanted it to be in your trust, this kind of an inventory, because like you said, just because I say I want it in my trust, it's not in my trust.
No.
Right? It's got to, there's work that has to be done.
You got to do something to get it in there.
Yeah, you have to, and it's not a lot of work, but it's something, right?
Yeah.
Because if you don't do the work, if you don't like retitle the account or retitle the bank account or the brokerage account and into the trust, then it's not in the trust. And even though the trust was probably made and you wanted it to happen that way, it's not. So.
Well, or you may have talked about it when you set the trust up and you might have said, okay, we
do
know
it.
what we have to do. We'll do this later. And look, and you make a perfect point. This is not like super fun time stuff, right? Like you don't wake up on a Saturday and jump out of bed and say, I can't wait to get to the bank and do paperwork, right? Nobody's excited
That's what
about
I want
that.
to spend my day off doing.
I want to call Fidelity. It's going to take me 40 minutes to get through on the 800 line, and I want to get some paperwork that I'm not going to understand,
Yep.
and it's going to have big words in
And
there
I'm
that
going
aren't
to do
going
it
to make
wrong the
sense.
first time, so I'm going to need to get it again.
Can't wait to tackle this project. But the exercise of going through and saying, we own a house. Our house is at 123 Main Street. We own it jointly. We have an IRA. The IRA is at Fidelity. Who owns it? Who's the beneficiary? We're not talking about, like to John's point, we're not talking about super detail, but we're just talking about you having an inventory of kind of what you're working with.
And write it down.
Yep.
Write it down. Like don't put it on necessarily put on your. I mean, you can put it on your phone, right? You can put it on and some people are savvy enough to have it, but I like hard copy. I like seeing things, right? I like having it.
Yeah.
And because if it's on my phone or whatever, then maybe I'm not necessarily I won't be able to find it. Like if I don't look at it for 5 years or something.
Well, and to your point, this is something that you could print out one time, put it in a file folder if you're that organized, right? And then next year, if you've saved it on your computer, maybe you're making some updates, maybe not. I'm not even saying that you're going to put dollar values on there. You want to take a ballpark shot at what the dollar values are, just so again,
you can. They're going to change.
That's fine.
So, and that's good to know. It's good to kind of have an idea at the time.
A little bit of a kind of half-assed net worth statement that you can kind of put out there. You don't have to put account numbers on there. What you could do is you could do like a XXXX, 27, the last two numbers, to help identify what the asset is, so that if somebody's ever trying to match up your list and some statements, they can do it. Because you've got some time in the life insurance saddle. I mean, we tell this to clients all the time. They'll say, "Well, Jay, this life insurance policy is 20 years old, and the company that we bought it from is like 6 companies ago.
Right.
But the certificate number, the policy number, the contract number, that doesn't change. So when you're trying to match up 15 different sets of paperwork, you don't do it by the name of the company. You don't do it by the letterhead. You do it by contract number, policy number, so you're dealing with the same thing. How many times have clients come into your office and brought in 7,000 pieces of paper that really belong to 2 accounts?
Yeah.
Right? But they just didn't know because it
all
looked
my
different.
trade documentation.
The company's changed, the name changed. So it could be easier than you think. And it's not a bad undertaking, over a cup of coffee. Spend an hour on it. And then if you're done after an hour, then be done.
It is easy. And the other thing is, if you're not done after an hour, you're closer than you were before.
That's great.
Right?
That's right.
So if let's say I have some old inherited stock, and this is what people get stuck on, right?
Yep.
It's like I have this old inherited stock that my grandfather bought AT&T or bought Ma Bell for us
New England Telephone
back in the day. And I have these stock shares, and I get this statement once every couple of years. I have no idea how much it's worth, and so you can get hungry. You can get how do I find this? There's no number to call. If I do call this number, there's some. So you're like, okay, put that one to the side. All right. Now, granted, I'm not saying throw it away, but do the easies, get the low-hanging fruit first, right? Get all
the big
this
stuff. Get the big stuff.
And so what I was going to say is back a long time ago, one of my Army heroes, a guy by the name of Sterling McLeod, right? I threw shout out to my pal Sterling McLeod. So Sterling McLeod, we're in the Army together. And Sterling McLeod, we're doing some Army planning thing, and McLeod looks at me and he goes, where are you keeping that? I go, I got it in this folder. He goes, you know what I am? I'm a binder guy. He goes, remember when they started the document protectors, when those things, because we didn't have those.
No.
Like back in when we first got in the Army.
You were 3-ringing the actual paper.
And the paper, or they had the cheesy ones where they fall out the bottom. And then when they started actually making the real, where you could slide the paper in, and it was like a little pocket, and you had both sides, and you're like, whoa, this is magic. So from that day forward, I'm like, I'm going to be a binder guy.
Yep.
And since then, that's what I do. I put it in a binder. So this list. So we have this list, and I'll look at it, and like you said, there's I've written some passwords on. I've crossed them. That's never really accurate, right?
Sure.
But now the technology will allow you forget your password. Don't worry, you'll be able
getting an email. There's one password you need. That's to get to all the other.
You'll be able to figure it out.
Yeah, Russian hackers will figure it out.
But so for us, right? Because my wife is like, whatever. This is what you do. You take But we have this binder that says, all right, here you go. Here's everything that I know that I know about right now. And there's no, like you said, there's no numbers, there's no but here's where it all is. So in worst case scenario, right? Think when the sky falls, you'll have this, and you could take this to Jay, or you could take this to anywhere. You take this
and just so you know, this binder, it doesn't have to hold every single piece of paper you get.
No,
right? This has to be kind of everything that you have. Everything that you have has like a one-pager.
Yeah.
Right? Like your Fidelity statement, you just need one page.
Yeah.
Whether it's the January statement or the December statement. It doesn't matter.
Yeah,
you just need one. You don't need 11. You just need one.
Because it's got the account number on it. Yeah,
that's right.
And,
that's
and
right.
you can look at like what your trades were and what your interest was, what you paid.
But that's
in
not
your
the
fee.
purpose of this binder.
Nope.
Is the purpose of this binder is just to give you a one-stop. When in case of emergency, break the glass.
Yeah.
Right. This is the emergency. The emergency is, oh my God, I don't know anything.
Yeah.
Where would I go to at least find it? And if your significant other goes to a binder and opens up the binder and there's a money section, even if it's just a spreadsheet that just says, here's where our money is, right?
Yeah.
And it's just a list of the company. And then you have an insurance section that says, here's our insurance policies, right?
Mm-hmm.
Again, every policy you have is a coverage declarations page. It's one-page piece of paper. It has the policy number on it and who to call.
Yeah.
Right?
There's
Who
an
to make-
800 number.
Who to make a claim with,
Yeah.
right? Maybe it's a local agent, maybe it's somebody. You need one of those. Maybe you need your car title insurance
There
in
you go.
there, right? You're just your title, because the insurance is covered in the insurance section. Life insurance in the insurance section. What else could you possibly, like bank accounts, there's a financial section.
Yeah.
What else would you possibly have in there?
I could have my Homestead Act for my house, for my property, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Or I have my page one of my mortgage agreement, right?
Yep.
That I have
Yeah,
there.
one mortgage statement.
Yep.
One mortgage statement. Something happens, who do I call? These are the mortgage people,
Yeah.
right? So now I know how to tackle them, track them down.
And then if I really want to get crazy, I have in this binder, I have a copy of, I don't know, my birth certificate, her birth certificate,
Sure.
our marriage certificate, my kid's birth certificate.
Photocopy of your passport.
Right. All that,
Sure.
all that weird stuff that
Yep.
someday you're like, I wish I knew this, and
Yep.
oh, it's in
Yep.
the binder. It's in
Yeah,
the
yeah. And then the binder goes in like the file cabinet,
Yeah.
right? And then the rest of the stuff, like all the statements and stuff like that. Like, I used to have a buddy of mine I worked with Fidelity, the great John Hartnett, and John used to say, I don't keep anything that I know I can get a copy of something from somebody else.
Yeah,
like,
that I can call me up or call you
Yep.
up and say, can you give me the latest,
Yeah.
statement? You're like, yeah.
And if you want your Fidelity statements from 20 years ago, it's not online, but you can call
They can get 'em.
Fidelity. You can send them a letter to the correspondence address to say, I need a copy of my statement from 1976, and they will send you a copy of your statement from 1976.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it lives someplace. It doesn't all necessarily have to live with you. And if you're putting all this stuff online, even better.
Forget it. Yeah.
But then you got, to your point, you get that one paper copy that you have that it's all organized, it's all in one space.
Yeah. And it's a reference point, and it's a reminder. It says this. Oh, now I remember. Oh, we have this thing. What you can answer questions with it. Like, do we have who's our homeowners insurance with? Oh, obviously, remember it's with USA, and here's the policy number, and here's the 800 number. So if you have if something goes wrong or something there for whatever reason, you need to call them. Call that number.
They're going to ask for two pieces of information,
They're-
right? They're going to ask for some personal item
Yep.
to know who you are, and they're going to want a policy number, and that's all right there
That's it.
in the binder.
Yeah.
And then I'll even do you one better. This isn't even something you need to update unless there's been changes. This isn't even an every year thing.
Nope.
I'll give you an every other year thing. Your Fidelity account, unless you make some changes, that hasn't changed in a while, right? Unless you change your insurance
you move it,
carrier,
right? Yeah.
That hasn't changed in a while. So again, policy numbers. I mean, how many E&O policies do you have in a file cabinet in the office, right? Every single year,
Yeah.
another copy of the policy, another copy of the policy.
Yeah, 'cause
Guess who
we're
has a
gonna
copy
need
of
that.
the policy?
Yeah,
The
the insurance
people.
company.
Why
Yeah.
do I need one?
Yeah.
Right?
And guess what? If you need it, guess who you're calling? The insurance company. You're not going to dig out the one that's like, where is it? Here it is.
Yeah.
Is this the most current one? I don't know.
Yep.
So I'm going to call them and get the most current one no matter what.
Thank you for calling the insurance
Yeah.
company. Yeah. Can you email me an updated copy of my policy?
Exactly.
Hang on one second. Policy number, boop, boop, boop. Here you go. You don't necessarily need to have it. So the idea of kind of going electronic is fine, but this is literally the break in case of emergency binder.
Yeah.
That's what it is. That's what it is.
Yeah, and all right, so we're going to go take a quick break, and then we're going to come back. We're going to talk about the kind of this, how that, this is like kind of, we're talking like our personal, like
Sure.
your kind of your family stuff. But then, like you said, and I think it's a great point. There's a list of things that I just want to make sure that if something happens to me, and I'm particularly referring to your business, right?
Sure, yeah.
So you're not going to go into like all the the boring detail of like how to run a legal practice.
Nope.
But you're going to say, here's the framework of kind of what how it works, right?
Yep.
Here's my employee, and kind of we'll go through like those kind of things just in case. Again, another break in case of emergency, right?
Sure,
And
yeah.
break it open. All right, so don't go away. We'll be right back on Money in the Law, My FM 101.3. Jay Marsden, John Droyan, Tommy Harmon. We'll be right back. Stay
We'll be here. And we're back. My FM 101.3. Jay Marsden with the Marsden Law Group. John Drohan, Main Effort Financial. Tom joining us here. We're talking about the break in case of emergency binder. Hashtag, right? Hashtag that.
Yeah.
Right? But now we're talking about break in case of emergency business binder. Something that's been bugging me from a business perspective. We had a client come in one day and they were talking about the challenges that they were having accessing somebody's business bank accounts, right? And so the conversation was around making sure, if you had the chance to do it, to make sure that maybe your significant other, you wouldn't necessarily put them on the account, depending on the business, for a whole host of reasons. They either can't be on there, they might not be allowed to be on there. You know, there might be some compliance reasons that they can't be on there, but you can most definitely make them a beneficiary of a business bank account, a TOD or POD, transfer on death, payable on death, so that if something ever happened, whatever liquidity, whatever money that you have in the business,
They'll get the money.
your significant other can get their hands on the money, not to spend it, but to be able to either pay vendors, because you might owe some people some money, but to pay, more importantly, to pay your people who are then going to hopefully be engaged in the process of saying, we'll help you shut the business down because we know it way better than you because we work in it every day.
Yeah, you don't know. You have no idea.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
we do.
Yep.
And right, and that ability to be able to keep the business running, because that's what, or like you said, if it's time to dial it down, or if you're in a position that the business has value, and if your business could potentially be sold, right? Like a book of business could be sold,
Sure,
right?
sure.
And there's value in that spouse, in this case, in this example, has kind of inherited that. So how are you, because there's so many moving parts that have to happen, and the first thing is you need money to do it.
That's right.
And
That's right.
he or she, they're not going to have the wherewithal, and they may not have the cash flow to be able to, pay a 10-person payroll if they can't get access to that business bank account.
Well, and that's right. And you might not need a 10-person payroll at that point, but you might need a 3-person payroll to kind of help shut the business down, right? And so you may want to, if you don't have one, you may want to draft, from a business perspective, some type of business succession agreement or some type of business succession plan, or at least have a colleague who's in your practice area who can step in and say, let's kind of help me, let me help you guide the ship at this point to figure out, what needs to happen, right? That doesn't necessarily mean that person's getting your business, but there's somebody who would come in and say, look, I kind of understand the pros and cons of what needs to happen here, and I understand the mechanics of what needs to happen. So, and they can talk to other professionals in your business, right? If you run an oil company, you don't hire a baker to come in and help kind of wrap your business up. You want to find one of your buddies in the business who can come in and say, let's kind of take care of this.
And depending upon like what the business is, right? So if it's a like Jay and I are in service business, right?
Sure.
So in the service business, we're the primary kind of service providers, right?
Yeah, we don't have a lot of inventory.
Yep. So, but if you're in let's say say you're in you own a hardware store,
Sure.
right? And you have, so and you can only imagine like somebody who owns a hardware store, like Fisk's General Store, right?
Sure.
So John Paltrinieri, God bless him, he's like the immortal, guy who runs Fisk's General Store. I mean, he's like Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. He knows he's the one guy who knows how everything runs, like in that. And I know his wife, she's there with him. Carol's, she understands the business. But I mean, as far as like the nuances of the business, that's something that really only he knows how to do.
Well, and here's the other thing. If something, God forbid something happens, what you want to do is you want to say, look, the business, while it's running, is a real asset and it has real values.
Yeah.
There are things that, there are certain things that would potentially continue on with that business, right? If it's handled correctly. What you don't want to have happen is you don't want to have a business that you or your significant other has spent years developing and building and growing, to all of a sudden one day somebody just walks over and turns the lights off and it's all done, because there could be a lot of goodwill built up in there. There could be a real saleable asset
Sure.
that has real value, that if your significant other was still alive, they would say, I'm selling it and it's worth X amount of dollars. You don't want the thing to just come to a screeching halt and then you're just left with a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, and this is where kind of like that whole idea of a succession plan is, it applies to pretty much any business, right? And even if you're, we think about it, right? Like we'll think about like, and I'm sure that, people like who like, Keith, who runs a hardware store or whomever, like they in their mind, like, well, how does this end, right? How does this story end? Well, it ends by my son taking over or my daughter taking over, or it ends, or someone's going to buy it, or I'm going to sell my business. I'm going to sell like my franchise tag, or in the case of Fisk General Store, maybe like, I'm going to sell this. I'm going to sell.
Think about Coffee Haven.
Yeah.
Right? Coffee Haven, right? Tom and Pam were like, we're out. We're out of the coffee business. We've done it for a long time. We're looking for change. We're going to do something different. They had two options. They could have just hung a sign up that said, we're not here anymore. Mm-hmm. Go get your coffee elsewhere. Turn the lights off and leave, which has zero value for them other than the time they get from not going to work every day. Instead, they find a local entrepreneur in the same exact business they're in, coffee and bagels, and they go to that person and say, do you want to buy our business? And then they have a conversation that says, yeah, we would love to buy your business.
Yeah, there's some value in your practice. And,
yes.
and you, even if you don't own the property, like there's value in the name. There's value in the customer loyalty. There's value, maybe there's value in your menu. There's value in kind of how you do it. Maybe you have some secret sauce that you put on the bagels or something like that.
You have a little niche. You have a little niche, right? So they sell the business.
And you have inventory. You have stuff,
inventory,
right?
That's right. You have goodwill in the community. It's all the things that you just mentioned. And so then now, instead of just turning off the lights, I don't know this for a fact, I'm assuming, Tom and Pam walk away with a check. How much is the check for? I have no idea. Maybe it's 50 grand. I don't know. I have no idea. But you know what? It's more than zero.
Yeah, and the other important part of this, and we talked about this when I'm looking at in the penthouse of my my next chapter, the Four Seasons of Eternity. I want I want my business to kind of continue. Maybe I do. Maybe I want I want to continue to have this whatever that imprint that I had on my community.
You want your business to be bigger than you.
Yeah,
that's what I tell clients.
I want it to outlive me. Right?
Absolutely right. Absolutely right. Yes.
So back to this whole idea of kind of documenting this. So you have, and you and I, like people like that, like us, we have these ideas in our mind. Like, so yeah, if something happened to me, this is what I would want to see happen. But we don't necessarily tell anybody, right? Or we don't really communicate that, or we don't write it down, right?
No, we know because we know.
Yeah, we know because
of course everybody knows what we want because it's in our head somewhere.
Exactly.
Absolutely right.
So what's to stop me from sitting and saying, all right, taking like 15 minutes saying, all right, in the perfect world, here's what I want to see. And it's not like I'm sitting on my deathbed. I'm doing it right now. Like, hey, this is what I want to see happen. I want my practice to be sold. And we're required to have a succession plan, but somebody like John Paltrineri or somebody like Keith from the hardware store, like those guys are like, hey, you know what? This is what I wanted.
Drive through downtown Milford. Any business along the main street in Milford, if that person wants that business to continue in their absence, they got to do some work now, and they got to have a succession plan.
Yeah, and at least I like outline the concept of kind of how you, because then that could give the next person in line or the person who's going to continue this for you at least an idea of kind of which direction to head, right? You could say, hey, I have always entertained the idea of selling my, let's say I have a gas station, right? I've always entertained to selling it to the guy from Milford, right? The Exxon guy from Medway. Because he has approached me before and said, oh, he's been interested in would you, if you're ever interested in selling your station, would you, come talk to me first? And if you don't tell anybody that, they're not gonna know that, right?
No.
So if at least.
And you don't want somebody to show up and say, you know what? This guy had a train wreck of a succession plan, so I can come in and make this a fire sale.
Yeah.
Right? You know what? Not that you're hoping that doesn't happen, but that's not what you want to happen. You want somebody to come in and say, look, we're looking at a lot of people. Let the bidding begin. Let's make sure that we get the highest, best value we can get for the property because this is part of your legacy. This is what you're leaving to your family.
And especially if there's real value. If there's real value, then.
But how about that? Not only if there's real value, but also what about if this business is the primary breadwinner for your family? You either want them to get a check. If you're not going to make up the difference with life insurance, you may want to put them in a position to be able to say, They can still benefit from the business after I'm gone. We got to find a way to have the business run for them. They don't have to be involved in the day-to-day, but I still want them to take a paycheck.
Yeah.
I want to replace my paycheck with a paycheck that goes to them, that comes out of the business, and figure out a way for that to work. What would that look like?
Yeah, and that's your succession plan. That's
Yeah.
it. That's selling a business, right? Where, you know, like oftentimes, like let's say you own a business, you own, and not including the property, but the business sells for $1 million. Maybe the guy buying the business, he doesn't have $1 million. He can't write you $1 million check.
Right.
But the plan is, there's a payout over time, and that's, again, that could become the income that you were drawing from the business while you were working. Right?
And depending on where you are in your sort of life's journey, that could be a big deal, right?
Yeah.
You could be 5 years away from retirement, and if this goes wrong, then it has a ripple effect that goes way downstream for your significant other that you're not going to love, right? But if you do it right, you get them to that 5-year window where you say to yourself, this was our plan anyway.
Yep.
And so it just kind of worked out. I didn't obviously get to finish the journey with you, but that was not my plan. But this, from taking care of people, this worked out.
Then you come back and, like in the movie Ghost, like you're like
Yeah, you
there,
come
you're
back,
like
yeah.
in Whoopi
Yeah.
Goldberg
Yeah.
form, right? And you're
Yeah.
like, listen, this isn't how I drew it up.
Right.
I know it's a little sad, right? Like it's a little touching thing, but you know what? You're going to be okay.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Stay away from that guy. Yeah.
Yep. And stop with the clay.
Yeah.
It's just-
Yeah. It's
nobody
too
cares
much.
about
Yeah.
that.
Too
That's
much
right.
pottery. Yeah.
Too much mess.
All right. So the takeaway today is, don't be afraid to write some stuff down.
No, don't be afraid to own this project. This
Yep.
is a good project to get behind, to really just get a handle on where you're at. We're not making any this is not a discussion about am I ready for retirement. This is not a discussion about does my estate plan need to be updated. This is just about kind of assessing all the tools that are in your toolbox and just organizing them, because it's kind of the time of the year for that. Everyone
Organize
finds
your
themselves-
toolbox.
That's right. That's right. This is just about knowing where everything is, and then we'll talk in 2025 about how we fix it, how we sharpen those axes, how we make it ready to use. But this is just inventory. Know where it all is, and then we'll clean it all up and we'll fix it all up come January.
And the other thing I'll advise you to do is do this as well, but also do it with Christmas, because then you're never going to have the problem of giving the same gift in consecutive years.
Look, if you want to make sure that you can confirm that 15 years ago you gave somebody a Big Jim rescue rig and you wanted to be able to point to something
Which
and
I
say,
can.
I got the receipts.
Which is documented.
You want to take care
Which
of.
I know how much I paid for that wreath. So oh, really? We're up 40% this year? Let me show you what you charged me last year.
That's right. That's
All
right. Inflation
All right.
is real.
Listen, continue with your holiday spirit.
I will.
Turn it. I just turn it up to
I'm
one.
working on
Tommy, I
it.
know you're like 11,000.
He's fully engaged.
Yeah, he
He's
is.
fully
All right.
engaged.
Yeah, right? Because Tom's like Tom. I mean, real thoughtful Christmas
Yes,
gifts, right?
yes.
Right.
Quite
Like,
possibly some of
yeah,
the
we
best.
made this. Yeah, this is what me and my mom made. Right? You're like, oh, great stuff, right?
Yep.
All right. So next week, we're on for next week, right?
Yeah, we are. Yeah.
Next week that's the Christmas special.
the one? 'Cause
Because after that is actually Christmas.
Oh,
so
all
we're
right.
not.
All right.
I'm
All
not.
right.
I can't be
All
here
right, so
on the
maybe there'll be some
25th.
cheer at the office. We'll see. We'll figure it out.
I did miss my coffee that I had at the last
the
one.
magic-
I was
the
thinking
magic
about
Christmas
that.
coffee.
Okay,
We'll bring that back.
All right, we'll everybody have a great week.
see you
Thanks for
next
listening today on Money in the Law. We'll see everybody next week. Continue with your holiday spirit.
Get listening.
Write it down in your book.
All right. See ya.
Bye.